the presentation?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll get started. I have linked the explainer and the discussion entry on the GitHub here. So later, if you have time, if you like to, you can check them out. So I'm going to start the presentation now. The history is it was brought up by UF and Nick a few years ago, and between 2023 and 2024, Josh made some substantial achievement. He made a design doc that explores the interface design, and he also explored some implementation ideas in the design doc, and he also put up a number of sales. There are a couple of tests already checking to the WPT test. And he also had 3 implementation sales, and one of them actually approved, but none of the implementation sale is landed in Chromium. So I'm picking up from this at this point, and I think everything is still open to discussion, because no implementation is landed in Chromium yet. So let me explain. So this idea has already, so this initiator information is available in some lab tools. There is a request map tool, online tool, that it can display this dependency tree. If you put in the website address, the web page address, it will display how the resources are loaded. Here is a graph. It actually displays the triggering relation, meaning when it loads the resource, it displays what resource triggered the fetch of the current resource. It is only shows the actual triggering relation. It doesn't show the blocking relation, or this. It's not a comprehensive dependency graph. It only shows what actually triggered during the load process. And there's also initiator attribute displayed in the Chromium development tool. And at the bottom part of the page, I put a snapshot of the result. So basically, you can see it displays the resources, and one of them is actually failed to fetch. It's a 48.png. So the initiator is other, meaning it's not reported, and because it's failed, because the fetch failed. And the first one, get started.html, the initiator is also other, because this is a root. This is a root doc, so there's nothing to trigger it. And for the rest, the CSS, JavaScript, and the images, they all should displayed the initiator. It shows which document, which file triggered the fetch, and it actually shows the line number. We notice here it's displayed. So in the first 3, the initiator is a main HTML file, and the last one is fetched by a JavaScript. So some initiator information is already in the Chromium. So what we are going to like to do is to collect such information from the real user monitoring, and there has been discussion, like Nick pointed out, a more accurate dependency tree has such benefits, and it will be further be more helpful. It will be very helpful in addition to the lab tools. It helps the website and the CDN to optimize the delivering content, and it helps the backtrace the rogue request. So I'm going to talk about Yoshi's approach. He used IDs to identify the key of the Yoshi's app approach. The first one, he used ID to identify the resources, not URL. The ID is unsigned integer, and then he used another unsigned integer initiator to point the initiator. Here's the example. So with every resource timing will return two additional fields called the resource ID and an initiator. The resource ID is just identify the current resource. So for example, here we get like we get two entries. One is the main page, another is an image that's included in the main page. And for the main page, it gets a resource ID as 1, and initiator is 0 because there's no initiator. And for the next resource, it has got its own resource ID, which is different from the main page. But also importantly, it gets an initiator, and this is the ID of the initiator, and that's 1. So we look back at the previous resource and see the previous resource main page has a resource ID as 1, which is the same. So that means that is the issue ID, the initiator of the current resource. So basically, the key is to use an integer to identify the resource. So the resource ID is generated. It is started from a small number, random number, and it keeps increasing. And according to the previous discussion, somebody recommended use something very similar in the Chromium. That is current interaction event ID. So we could use the same, exactly same, but use implementation is a little different. He added more randomness, but I think we could use the same. But let's skip this detail right now because I think this method, this resource ID method may be improved. I changed and improved. Okay, next step is to find the initiator for current resource. This is actually the major challenge, is to find out which resource triggered the current fetch. And because there are many different kinds of fetch that there's many different kind of way that the fetch is initiated, and there are many different call sites in the browser. But basically, and another step we need to do is to find the initiator, the ID. Josh had a discussion in the design doc, and I found out it addresses two situations where the initiator is a main HTML file and it's a JavaScript. Noticeably, the case where the CSS file is the initiator is not explored yet. And also, there's noticeable. Also, we notice that Josh's approach is trying to calculate to find the initiator with a completely new method. It's not using the initiator information used by the dev tools. So it's a completely new approach to find the initiator. This is the current status of the of Yoshi's approach. Now, I'm thinking, I'm really thinking there could be a possibility to use the data that's used by the dev tool. Apparently, we have calculated some initiator information in the Chromium already, and I guess the similar information may be available in other browsers as maybe implemented in other browsers as well. If we are share the data source, if the dev tool and the performance timing share the same data source, there are some advantages. The improve can benefit both, and it's easier for the user to understand and interpret the values because they're the same from the dev tool and the real time the real user monitoring. However, I just looked at a quick look at in the Chromium. So first of all, I'm not sure how good the how good the data source from the dev tool is. Are they complete, or are they like accurate enough for our purpose? Because I noticed that there are some resources, like in the larger page, a more complicated page, sometimes the attributes are missing. So I need to find out if the data is good enough, or if it's not good enough, how far it is from our requirement. And also another problem is because how the code is written right now, there is no easy way to share the data without some refactoring. Because what is shared is actually the data structure called fetch initiator info. Resource timing has easy access to it, and dev tool use part of the information from it. Noticeably, in some cases, the initiator is from the fetch initiator info, and in some other cases, the information is taken from somewhere else. So there is no right now, because the way the code written, there's no easy way. So there may be some significant refactoring is required for the dev tool and the resource timing to share the data elegantly. So I need to do more, and I definitely need to do much more research on the dev tool data source to have a better understanding on exactly the situation here. But I do have some idea. I think this is what I'm planning. This is what I'm thinking right now. Is I think even without reach a very elegant solution that the tool share the same data resource, this could be the right direction to go. Is we first I think we could change the data presentation of Yoshi's approach. I think we could replace the resource ID with just URL representation. The disadvantage I see with the idea of representing the resource with ID is that we need to look back and forth. The website needs to look up the ID to find the URL. And on the other hand, the browser, when we find the URL, we need to transfer it to ID. So we need to actually to keep a URL to a resource ID map. I think it looks to me it's unnecessary. We could just send out the URL. So that's the first advantage is we can remove the work. We do not need the ID. We just report the URL directly. It says what is the URL of the initiator. And also there is a advantage is like it's the same format of the dev tool uses. If we calculate that, the dev tool could use that too. And then we can put this in the fetch initiator info. And then downstream, the dev tool can use it. So I think this, if we change it to this way, it is get closer. It simplifies the work, and it gets closer to share the data with the dev tool. And another thing I would explore is to find out how we can maybe refactoring some of the work, so we can create refactoring the dev tool code, so to move the initiator URL sooner, and to get it into the fetch initiator info, so resource timing can use it. So what I'm thinking is to the most important thing is to change the data format, and try to do some refactoring and get some data in the fetch initiator info, so the two can share to some degree. This is what I'm thinking. But I need definitely to do more research to get a more concrete plan. For the security, this is the same. The check is the same as like many other like content encoding and content typing. Content type, it is exposed if the CORS check is passed, and time allow origin doesn't expose those. That's all. Thanks, and I would like to appreciate some feedbacks.
Stopping the recording.